Right, here's a good one. When you're dealing with ultra-wealthy families, are you selling to the principal or to the gatekeepers who control access? Which is essentially who you really need to charm, isn't it?
Yes.
The person with the money, or the person who tells you the person with the money is busy feeding the Labradors, which they
Does the
normally
person
are.
with the... Well, hang on. Does the person with the money actually do the feeding of the Labradors?
Yeah, they might. The Queen fed her own dogs.
Oh, yeah, well, that's fair. Okay, so basically they're just not... They're busy just being not interested in whatever you're trying to sell, which is probably more often the case, right?
Yeah, exactly. I always like to think of it like those Greek myths, you know. You've got the god at the top of the mountaintop, who's the principal.
Right.
But before you can get anywhere near them, you have to get past Caberos, or Cerberus, if you're going to pronounce it
hang on
the
a moment. Sorry.
British way.
Cerberus is the way I thought you pronounced it, but let's carry on.
Cerberus is how we pronounce it in the UK. Cerberus is more Greek.
Righto.
Anyway, it's the three-legged dog, the three-headed dog, not the three-legged dog, you know? Except instead of those three heads, you know, it's probably a PA or a family office or a cousin who has failed his A-levels but somehow controls the yacht schedule.
We've all got one. That's hilarious. Sometimes though, and all right, how do I say it? Cerberus?
Or Cerberus, you choose.
Cerberus. No, I want to do it properly. I don't want to, you know, this is the thing, I've just only ever read it. But sometimes Cerberus bites, right? And I had a client once tell me that their assistant had once deliberately mislaid a sales proposal because they didn't like the salesperson's tone. And the principal never even knew it existed.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It's a perfect example. People assume that wealth equals autonomy. But actually, the more money you have, the less you do for yourself. Everything is delegated,
obviously.
you know? Yeah. So in the end, you end up with this army of gatekeepers whose job is to filter, you know, because they're not just controlling the access to you, they're actively deciding who makes it through.
Ooh, it's like family systems in therapy, because everyone thinks the identified patient or client is the one with the issue, but actually the real dynamic is happening elsewhere, and the one who looks quiet, who sits, you know, in that corner, the one who's not saying very much at all, that's the one you need to watch. And it's the same with families and money, right? Because you can charm the patriarch all day long, but if the daughter doesn't like you, that's it, you're done.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've actually seen that veto in action. I watched a jeweler pitch a necklace worth the GDP of a small country to this woman. And she was nodding along. She obviously loved it. The salesperson thought that they had the sale in the bag. And then the daughter, who had been completely ignored up to this point, and was sitting next to her, just muttered one word under her breath: vulgar. And the whole deal collapsed faster than a Jenga tower at a 6-year-old's birthday party.
That's awful.
Right? Yeah.
Which makes then the answer to the question less about either or. It's not principal versus gatekeeper. It must be both, right? You can't ignore the principal, but you also can't get anywhere without the people who run their life.
Yes, absolutely. But it, you know, it's worse than that, because sometimes the gatekeeper is the principal. I mean, I don't mean literally, but sometimes they swap roles, you know. So the principal might one day wake up and decide that they want to actually sign off on everything, which happens. And then they get bored, so the next day they're back to golfing or shopping or doing whatever they're doing, and then the CFO makes the call. So, you know, the pieces move around.
Like chess.
Yeah, except that the pawns become queens, the queens turns into bishops, and the king is asleep in the corner somewhere, which is basically utter chaos.
And that's where, like, most people are going to get it wrong, right?
Right.
Because they'll walk into a room and think they know who the decision maker is. They know that the queen is the queen, and they focus all their attention on that one person, when actually in reality the real decision will be made. I don't know, in the car on the way home by the person that they completely ignored.
Yeah, totally. True story. A client told me long ago that one of my competitors in India, so we were both going for the same contract, but the competitor lost a contract because they didn't offer the chauffeur coffee. So they were, which is wild, isn't it? So they were at Claridge's in Delhi, not the same as Claridge's in London. Meeting this client, and so we were pitching for it and they were pitching for it as well. Of course, they thought they were being frightfully clever and, paying all attention to the principal, ignoring everybody else. But it turned out that the chauffeur was practically family, as happens in these families, because they've been with them for like 30 years. And the client asked afterwards in the car what he thought of both salespeople, both companies. And apparently the chauffeur said, well, the one from Luxury Academy was lovely because she said to him, do you want a coffee? And the other, and he said, and the other seemed a bit offhand. So we got the contract. So I suppose the moral is, when in doubt, offer coffee to the staff.
But you should anyway, right? Because that's just the human thing to do. It's not just coffee though, right? It's the recognition that everyone in that system matters, even the ones that you might think are incidental, maybe disposable. And sometimes it's especially those people, especially from that story. Yeah,
right? Totally. Which is why the correct answer to this particular question, principal or gatekeeper, is actually system. You're not selling to an individual per se. You're selling to an entire ecosystem, a very expensive and quite often dysfunctional ecosystem, where allegiances shift hourly, but a system all the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't clock that, you're going to waste your time polishing your pitch for the principal, and the deal is secretly and quietly being strangled by the PA or the spouse or the chauffeur or the son with a new MBA who wants to show how tough and clever he is. Right?
Or the daughter who thinks that you look like the kind of person who eats pot noodles. To be fair, I sometimes do. I rather like pot noodle.
Me too, but let's not do it in front of them, hopefully.
No, but I mean, the suspicion lingers. And and suspicion in these kind of families and with these kind of clients, suspicion is lethal.
Right, absolutely. That little seed of doubt, right? So basically what you're saying is don't choose between principal or gatekeeper. Watch the whole system. Pay attention, I don't know, to the glances, the silences. My lot would be brilliant at this because of the hypervigilance. They would be so good at it. But, maybe that's why they do make good salespeople. But anyway, the kind of you've got to watch for the after meeting corridor chats and look at where the decision really actually lives.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So, I mean, the dining room or the meeting room or whatever is theatre. The truth happens outside in the corridor, which means that the only real skill is learning how to read the cast, isn't it? Once you can see who's holding the strings, then you're going to know where to aim. Everybody else is quite literally just scenery.
That's quite bleak.
I mean, it's not bleak, it's clarifying. And besides, it makes things much more fun once you stop pretending it's rational, because then you can enjoy the chaos.
I mean, you particularly would enjoy the chaos, wouldn't you?
Yeah, totally. I thrive in it. And if I didn't, and if, it's not going anywhere, just blame the chauffeur.
At least give him coffee.
Right.